How you doing today? Welcome back, everybody.
Doing good. Doing good, Jeff. How about you?
Good, good, good. I was looking around and trying. Well, I would say just like you were talking about the charts that we were presenting earlier. I had my handy artificial intelligent best friend take a look around LinkedIn and see what people were talking about in this space. And what came up as one of the most prominent things that people are talking about in terms of frustrations or pain points is charging infrastructure reliability and expansion challenges. And there are some sub bullets to this one that I think we can talk through. Will the first one I'll throw to you, and you are very well versed in this space. It was related to connectors and adoption and things like that. So I'll throw these slides up, and you can tell me what to do. But related to NACS adoption, and you can explain what NACS is as well.
Yeah, well, you're pulling that up. So NACS it's an acronym, four-letter acronym, stands for North American Charging Standard. So in this go around, we've had electric vehicles around, well, really since the late 90s, but like actually in production that anyone could purchase, kind of started in 2010 with the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt. And immediately they came out with two different styles of connectors that were used. One to support level 1 and level 2, which is a slower charge using uh, regular household power, I'll say, 120 volts or 240 volts, something you'd use for like a dryer or an electric oven. And then DC fast charging, which uses commercial power. So two standards right out of the gate. Pretty soon, Tesla came out with their Model S, which was using a third style connector that incorporated both that lower speed level 1 and level 2 and the DC fast charging. Then a couple years later, the North American automakers, the big three, adopted a fourth connector style that sort of added DC charging to one of the other styles. So in this chart, we've got, or this graph or image, we've got a picture of four different connectors to support charging that, support vehicles that have been delivered over the last decade and a half and deployed across North America. A lot of challenges there. You've got finding infrastructure that has the right connector. People got to carry adapters. You might show up to a site that only supports one or two of those, and you've got the third or fourth option. So it's a whole mixed bag. Everyone's trying to make theirs the standard. Fast forward 2022, Tesla opened up their patents, said anyone can use them. Their connector was, I would say, immediately adopted. It did take a couple years, but they were able to formalize it into an open SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers standard, and get it finalized within like a year and a half, which is crazy fast. It took more than a decade for some of these other connector styles that were used in the past. And then within that, essentially that same time period, maybe an extra year, you basically have almost every automaker announcing that they're going to be using that connector moving forward. So what does that mean? There's going to be this really messy transition period where you've got still all these connectors out there, but in a decade or so, all the cars will be using one connector, which benefits industry, manufacturing volumes of scale, and all kinds of things like that. So it's really exciting time for the industry, even though there's going to be a little bit of a transitional period. So yeah, we can, if you want to jump to the next one.
Yeah, before we do, I just to paint a little
Oh yeah,
some a bit of a painful picture. So me with my super sexy Nissan Leaf that I drove for a while had this connector. I think everybody can see my, well, for those that are viewing multimedia, you can see my mouse. But I had the J1772 connector, and then right next to it, I had that massive CHAdeMO port. So I had those two ports right on the front of the car, and I had one is for level one and level two, and the other one is for DC charging. Yeah, going to a single connector, single style for the entire industry is definitely an improvement for consumers. No question about that. But it makes it there's a transition period, and that's kind of where we're in right now, right?
Yeah, so in this next one, we're talking about, OEMs that are committed to using it's the term that's used is native NACS, which native means that it's built into the vehicle from the OEM. And then NACS is the North American charging standard. And the reason they call it native is because what some automakers are doing today that haven't started building NACS into the vehicle is they're including adapters with the vehicle. So you might have one of those other four ports, but your car comes with an adapter that lets you use the new standard. But on this list, we've got, I think it's 10 or 11 OEM, and these are OEM groups. So they each one can represent a number of different makes and models that are out there. But Tesla, they're already in production. They've been using it since 2012. But coming up in model year 2026, we've got a lot of major players: Ford, GM, BMW, Kia, Nissan, Toyota, Subaru, Rivian, and Lucid.
R.I.P.
Uh,
Chatham. Thank you,
yeah,
Nissan.
yeah. So Nissan was a long holdout in CHAdeMO. So this is just, again, 2022. Tesla opened up their patents on it. It became a group approved standard, or a coalition approved standard. A bunch of engineers got together and they were able to agree on something in a year and a half, which is like, that doesn't happen very often, if ever. And then all these major automakers are putting it into production in the span of 4 years. So
A similar, I don't know if you know the exact dates on J1772 as a comparison, but we were talking in the last episode about the 2011, 2012 Leaf and Bolt and the different cars that were sort of the modern um, best, I don't know, modern production version of EVs as they currently exist. That initial tip of the spear for that generation. The discussion, so they included J1772 ports. The discussions for J1772, I believe, started in the 90s.
they did.
Yeah.
When
So,
I started, we were delivering chargers without cords because the standard had just been finalized and no one was in production of the cords yet. So the cord and connector that you plug into the car got installed later in the field.
oh man, that's exciting. A little terrifying.
Yeah, but yeah, that was over a decade in the making. So the last one is just to, basically the rest of the OEMs out there have announced that, they'll be using the NACS connector by, we say on the top by 2030, but actually most of these announcements are by 2028. So, or the one that hasn't confirmed their timing is Mitsubishi. So,
Which is owned by Nissan or a JV of some type, which is, I can't imagine they're going to hold out individually. It
no,
doesn't make
but
sense.
they just haven't made an announcement yet, I
Yeah.
would say.
It's on their to-do list.
Yeah.
They have other important things going on, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, I don't know. So I think super excited about having a standardized connector, and I think it'll help, especially over time with reliability, accessibility at charging sites and things like that, because it's one less thing, especially over time, that people have to worry about. Do I have the right adapter? Is the site going to support my vehicle? Those questions go away.
Yeah. Yeah. So from a consumer standpoint, massive improvement, and just you don't have to think about those things. From an infrastructure side, we should. be able to realize significant improvements in commodity cost scaling on
Yeah.
cables and connectors, and because now we've got the vehicle end of that connector that's on every car, not just one automaker. You've got the infrastructure end of that connector that's everywhere. So not just the not just fast chargers that are out at your, oh boy, your local Walmarts, or what's another, Circle K, to call back to our previous episode. But even the cord sets, level one or level two cord sets that you're buying that are included with the car, or you're buying to install in your home, same connector. So you've got significant momentum in scaling cost that way. That should be helpful.
Yeah, I think it increases infrastructure too. Um, well, there's some assumptions behind that, but like a lot of sites now, you might have a unit with two ports, but it can own, each of the ports is a different connector. So by standardizing, now you have two ports that everyone can use instead of one that only some can use and one that others can use. So assumption is you can swap those cables and things like that, which yeah, maybe you can't, maybe you can.
Can improve accessibility, has a
Yeah,
potential to
yeah,
improve. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So yeah, that was one leg of the stool, so to speak, in terms of pain points or concerns that are out there floating around. Um, the second leg of the stool is about charger uptime and maintenance, and this is another one that I'm Will. I think you have a lot of very upfront and personal experience with. Yeah.
On both sides of the equation. So, as working in the OEM space with, on the charging equipment side for original equipment manufacturers, and then also on the charge point operator side or the network operator side. Uptime is really important. Um, it it it's critical for some applications, for fleets and things like that. Critical from a revenue standpoint, but ultimately for anyone that's using public infrastructure or even infrastructure in their home, this is their vehicle. It's their mode of transportation. It's pretty critical to everyone. There's not, not really examples of, oh, hey, your car's not charged, so it's just fine. Don't worry about it. That's not a mindset that people that are operating networks and manufacturing the equipment, can have, because every charge is potentially mission critical, right? Um, and I think uptime has been challenging, reliability has been challenging, especially as you get into higher power levels. But it's improved dramatically over the last 15 years that I've been doing it. Um, and it's also, it's not just the equipment, I think. It's people going in with a plan, setting service expectations, and frankly maintaining spare parts inventory in specific applications. You're not going to have an extra one probably at your house. Well, hopefully you have some backup, like a level one if you have a level two at your house, but in fleet like applications particularly, or public charging at municipal locations, having that plan, having spare parts and reliable vendors is super critical.
Yeah, for sure. That's one that I've been bit by a few times as a driver, is uh, things that are deployments that haven't had a robust maintenance and support plan before they were rolled out, and then something happened and they were there, but they weren't functional, and they were not able to provide service to people that needed it. And then people get pretty desperate. I think we've for sure come a long way since some of those days, but there weren't I don't think there were sufficient incentives in some of the early wave that happened to include that kind of planning around deployments, to make sure that, yeah, something breaks, something goes wrong. Who's going to find out about it in a timely manner? How are they going to get what they need to fix it in a timely manner and get there with the stuff they need to fix it in a timely manner? Um, and not sit there as an eyesore and a reminder of why. I mean, in some cases, they became a reminder or undermined EV adoption entirely because they're like, oh yeah, see, that stuff doesn't work. It's not ready yet.
Yeah, I think when we in the last episode, and we've talked about it in this episode, a comparison to a gas station. In a lot of cases, these products are different, because the owner and operator might be in a totally different state. Uh, they might be in a different country even. Um, there's not an attendant there all the time. In a lot of cases, these are out in a parking lot. It might be owned by the property management company who's not even on site. So the structure's a little different, which is like other challenges that you could run into even when the equipment's working is like payment. Hey, this credit card reader's not working. I can't figure out how to pay for this thing, which I think is
Or
another.
yeah, can't figure it out or it doesn't work. And then so
Yeah.
everything, every little bit, if it's if it becomes a stumbling block in the chain of getting it to work, you have everything from electricity, well, from equipment on the ground to electricity in all the way through dispensing of electricity to that EV and the payment processing unless it is put in a parallel path where if payment processing fails, it dispenses anyway, which I think should be a requirement. And there are a number of other people that have talked about this in the past. It's contentious, but if that becomes a critical step, then that is a failure point for the entire system, which is yeah bad for consumers.
Which is that's another one. Plug and charge. This is a newer standard. It's starting to be adopted by more automakers and network operators. It's built off of what Tesla did with their proprietary network, except it's open to all vehicles. And the concept is you pull up and the equipment's able to identify your vehicle, identify a payment form that you have tied to it, and initiate the transaction. So I think from a public charging standpoint, that's night and day. Pulling up to a DC fast charger and doing plug and charge versus having to go through the payment prompt or the app prompts. So I think that's a good positive step forward that'll help with
And
reliability.
yeah, in lieu of a standard, I mean, there's, I don't know, to be honest, maybe we should have somebody on that talks or that has extensive experience with gasoline industry deployments, but I have worked with some in that industry, and EV charging cropped up as an entirely separate thing, and payment processing was an entirely separate thing, and you have like gas stations do this all the time. Like this is not, this is not, and it's not a big expense in their overall chain of costs, and it works. It's reliable and it's fast, right? I mean, you go pay for gas, you swipe your card, and the pump it turns on a second or a second and a half later. I mean, like it's a very quick process, and there's no reason why that shouldn't also be the case as a bare minimum for EV charging infrastructure in the public domain. Um, Plug and charge, like you said, there's an opportunity there that it could take a step forward and be even better for consumers if it can work reliably.
Yeah. Yeah, interoperability, reliability, all those things are a work in process with all this stuff. When we started out on the equipment OEM side, looking at credit card readers, one of the places we actually went is vending machines. So the credit card readers that were on early pieces of equipment, especially stuff that was added on later, it's the same thing that would be on a vending machine. Um, Not necessarily the same ones that would be integrated into a fuel pump.
Yep. But yeah, same. I mean, it's the same idea. You have a credit card reader. You have a low value product. That the cost of the payment transaction has to be low and quick. So
Yeah.
it's a great whether it's from a gas pump or from a vending machine. It's a great place to borrow from.
You
But
would think
it's
that
got
they
to
would
work.
just work, but they do not.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think about, have thought about a lot in the work that I've done and working with whether it's fleets or workplaces is like, what do you actually need? What do you need in this specific deployment? And let's make it work. Let's keep it as simple as possible to make the experience for your drivers, whoever they are, as effortless as possible, and to make it simple, pain-free, and as easy to maintain as possible. So the more layers of complexity you're adding, they might get you some more information, but if you're not going to use the information, don't put it in because it can cause you a problem later on. Um, yeah, so KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's a good. It's always in the back of my mind as I'm looking at projects and scoping and trying to define what the best way is, looking at objectives and what's mission critical for customers.
Yeah, every time you add a layer of complexity, you add a layer that could potentially fail
Mm-hmm. And that you
and
potentially need to
create ripple
maintain.
effects
Yeah,
in how
yeah,
difficult it is. Yeah, you have to pay for, dedicate resources towards, and
yep,
all these things. So yeah,
absolutely.
keep it simple, silly.
Yeah, that was a nicer. You're doing a great job of moderating me. We're not hating and we're not saying stupid. We're just
That's
silly.
right.
Keep it simple, silly. I like it. All right, I think the last thing for us today, and we'll be quick to this one, I think, Will, but it's another analogy that I wanted to bring up. So the last leg of the three-legged stool on this topic is about grid preparedness. So there's always the like, oh, the grid can't handle it, and as a utility person, I pretty maybe understandably annoyed with that with that perspective. And there are caveats. I'll mention that as well. But can it handle it? How is it going to work? What are we going to do? We've got here's the analogy before I go any further. The analogy being, and there's an AI thing that I want to talk about with this as well. Um, this is a highway, right? This highway is is built and is at capacity. Like the throughput of vehicles is basically at its max and it's probably causing traffic delays unless you have a whole lot of really confident drivers. Um, this is in the middle of a day in a very busy metropolitan area. This is what an interstate might look like. You can look at that same interstate at dusk, 3-4 hours later, and it's probably going to be a lot more empty than it was earlier. So you've built the same interstate. It's capable of handling a certain amount of traffic, but that traffic's not always there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's significantly less than the amount that it can handle. And the electrical grid is the same way. It's largely a massive fixed system that is built and has a certain capacity and throughput. And depending on what demands are, what local demands are, um, in in a certain region or area, and what that looks like over time throughout the day, that dictates, what can happen on the grid, how inexpensive things are, whether adding additional load is possible. So it's not a simple like, no, it's not big enough, can't handle it. It can, depending on how it is implemented. And that's one of the big promises of electric transportation, is that if it can be used to fill in a lot of those gaps. So if you've basically got, in my analogy here, you've got traffic could happen in the middle of the night, could happen at 2 a.m., could happen at 8:30 in the morning. If the timing of that traffic is not locked down and critical at a certain time, then you can move it around, and that car that would have been in a traffic jam at 4 p.m., that car can get through at the speed limit at a much later time. So that's the same phenomenon with the grid. If you have loads, and EVs are these kinds of loads that have flexible attributes to them. Um, so there is a possibility that the grid can handle a lot more than we think it can, but it has to be orchestrated, and we got to be smart about how we handle it. But if you take the binary question, if you just electrify everything today, can the grid handle it? No, it can't. But it's also not going to happen overnight and all at the worst time of the day just by default. So that's not a realistic scenario to compare it to. But yes, there are things that need to be thought through. There are smart things that we should be preparing for on the grid, program wise, infrastructure wise, planning, building. But it's an interesting problem to be in the venue of solving.
Yeah, I think it's in a way, the electric vehicles give the grid another lever to pull. As you have more and more out them, that's capacity. There's battery capacity to take up power during times when you might have excess generation, and then there's opportunities to put demand on the grid during different times of the day. It's like if you know you have to drive through an area with bad traffic, if you leave an hour earlier, you know you're going to miss it. Or if you leave, 2 hours later, you know that you're going to miss it and have a smoother drive. Leveraging the vehicle and when it gets charged is a similar opportunity. And we see, utilities out there incentivizing that in a lot of cases. Um, Different programs coming out, virtual power plant programs for shifting load, and time of use rates for charging when the traffic's low. But the capacity and the infrastructure is ready to go. So yeah, it's as long as we do it intelligently, and leveraging the controls that we have and influence consumer behavior when possible, like it takes a lot of those scary headlines and kind of mitigates it.
Yeah, there's a big opportunity,
Yeah.
but it will take work. So as somebody on the utility side, it takes work, not just with it's not just the utility thing that they alone can solve. Like you said, there need to be consumer facing programs and interaction with automakers and infrastructure vendors, et cetera. It's a promising problem, but it is a complex one. It takes a lot of stakeholders.
One of the things, like some of these programs out there can give you like a dramatic reduction in the cost of ownership on the vehicle to the point where like your vehicle almost becomes like, I mean, it's not net positive probably, but like a revenue stream where you've got actually money coming in from your vehicle. In some of these, like, newer, we're getting out on the edge of, vehicle to home and stuff like that. But
Is that Elon Musk talking about his robotaxi over there? Who's on the other side of the
no, no,
street?
no, no, not robo taxis. No, no, no. Just like um I was more going towards the like bidirectional charging vehicle to home and how it's kind of being leveraged as what's called virtual power plant, um, which is basically a utility aggregating load reduction. And they're using a vehicle battery to power homes instead of it being powered from the grid, which can save the utilities a bunch of money if they can avoid turning on peaker plants and things like that. And then they are giving some of that money back to people. So it's which is like, hey, I've never bought a gas car that did that. I've never like drove for Uber or anything, but like I don't know.
It is
It's
a
really cool.
yeah. It's a possible new arm of that vehicle as an asset. Exactly as you mentioned. It is in not so many words a battery on wheels, and batteries that store energy give you an opportunity to do something with that energy, depending on conditions that you're in and what your objectives or mission are as the owner of that asset. I generally so yes, that like a VPP and two-way power flow out of vehicles batteries, all very much possible. That gets even more. It's yeah, very complex in terms of programmatically and then consumer behavior and what is it really worth is what a utility would buy it for enough to actually encourage people to do it, which is a tough thing because it has to be coordinated very. The grid is a real time system, so it's not like you can, in that moment, talk to directly to a consumer and say, "We're going to give you this much. You cool with it?" And they have 3 seconds to figure it out, and then it goes. It's yeah, there have to be some common understandings of what's going to happen, what's permissible, what the value is before those transactions start taking place, because they need to happen when they need to happen to sustain the grid as a grid operator. All right. Funny story about this. I'm gonna stop sharing this image. So you probably could tell that was an AI generated image. My best friend, AI. Um, and I went through. So this is just kind of an aside. See if we even leave this in the episode. I went through creating a couple images, and I was like, it's gonna be a piece of cake. Just create me one image of like an interstate scene at midday with tons of traffic, and then another that is the same interstate, same view with very little traffic. And then I always get a kick out of how shoddy AI is in my experience. And it sent me back. Here are your two images. It sent me one image. I'm like, okay, what about the second image? Yeah, sorry, I only sent the one image. Here's the second one, and I don't know if you can see this. It is the same view, but what they did here is there's like traffic is a little bit less here, but if you look in the distance, it's still exactly the same, still packed, bumper to bumper. I'm like, okay, I guess, but can you reduce the traffic all the way to the city? Yeah, yeah, sure, I'll do that for
Yeah.
you. No, didn't do anything. I'm like, okay, you didn't do that. Can you try again? Yeah, yeah, I'll do it again. Got it. No, didn't get it again. Like, please. So I'm just like, this, just remove all the vehicles. It's like, okay, I removed all the vehicles. I don't know if you notice a difference there, Will.
It's-
This is an entirely different interstate
Oh man.
interchange here. And if you look closely, there's a center ring that isn't connected to anything. Do you see this? It's a little
Oh, that's
racetrack that's
great.
perfect for Ricky Bobby in there.
Yeah.
Just going round and round. So
I or if you ask it and it's like, yeah, yeah, here you go, and then you like, that's still not it. Oh, I actually can't do that. Have you run into
yeah, it
that yet?
is. Yeah, it is a lot of fun that we have with our AI bots who are just gaslighting us. All right. Well, what are any closing comments here, Will?
No, I say, hey, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, a like us. Feel free to send us feedback to thechargingcurve@gmail.com. And I'd say another big thank you to our sponsors, EV Charge Work and Strategy EV.
Yeah.
We're holding it down.
If you like, you could dethrone. I mean, I know we said some nice things about those sponsors, but we would, if you wanted to sponsor us, we would kick them out of the way for you. So, if you're interested, inquire at
Yeah,
thechargingcurve@gmail.com, or just shoot us a message on LinkedIn. I think we're both pretty available people.
yeah. Well,
Cool.
great.
All right, man.
Was good stuff.
Good chat. Good episode. We will see y'all next time. And if you have any ideas for us, send them along. Later.